Brielle Owens stood in the middle of the massive underground parking structure, spinning in a slow circle, her arms raised in frustration. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, glancing around at the sea of cars. She had already walked past the same gray pillar 3 times. Her tote bag slipped from her shoulder, and she yanked it back up with a huff. She'd only come to the downtown tower for a quick job interview with the temp agency on the 12th floor. 1 hour, tops. Now she'd been lost in this concrete maze for nearly 30 minutes, and it felt like every level looked exactly the same. "Okay, think," she whispered, trying to mentally retrace her steps. "You came in, after the coffee shop, near a blue sedan. Or was it black?" A deep voice cut through the echoing space. "You look like you're auditioning for a modern dance piece called Lost and Defeated." Brielle spun around. A man in a dark tailored suit stood beside a sleek black Aston Martin a few feet away, arms crossed casually. His tie was loosened slightly, and he had that whole effortlessly powerful vibe going on. Clean-shaven jaw, intense dark eyes, and a confidence that made her feel like he could command a boardroom with a single glance. "I'm not lost," she lied, straightening. "I'm just evaluating my parking strategy." He raised an eyebrow. "So your strategy is to wander in circles until your car magically appears." She rolled her eyes, but a laugh escaped her lips. "Fine, I lost my car. Please don't make me feel worse about it." He walked over, looking amused. "What kind of car are we trying to find in this vehicular jungle?" "Silver Corolla. Slight dent on the back bumper. Very glamorous." He nodded. "That helps. Any idea which level you parked on?" She looked sheepish. "I thought it was P3, but now I'm starting to think." "Maybe it was P5, he pointed behind her. "That's your Corolla, right?" Brielle turned. Her car sat 2 rows away, slightly angled in the spot, a pink scrunchie still hanging from the rearview mirror. Her shoulders dropped in relief. "Oh my God, yes." "That's it. You're welcome," he said with a light grin. She turned back to him. "Thank you, seriously. I was about 5 minutes away from crying. You handled it better than most. I once watched a guy call his mother after losing his Porsche for an hour." Brielle laughed again, then narrowed her eyes at him. "Wait, you work in this building?" "I own it." Her smile froze. "You what?" He extended a hand. "Foster Rains, CEO of Rains Global." Her brain stuttered. Rains Global. The name was plastered all over the building she'd just come from. She'd walked past his name on the lobby plaque without a second thought. She shook his hand. Brielle Owens, unemployed temp, also very embarrassed right now. Foster's grip was firm but warm. "Well, Brielle, if you're between jobs, maybe you should come work for me. I like people who don't panic under pressure." She blinked. "Are you serious?" He shrugged. "Why not? I'm always hiring smart people." "And you made me laugh, which is rare these days. I didn't even give you a resume. I don't need one to know you've got a brain and a little fire. That's more than half the battle." Her mouth opened, then closed. "You're not joking." "Nope, meet me tomorrow, 9th floor. Ask for me by name." Before she could form a coherent reply, he was already unlocking his car. "Wait," she called. "Why would a CEO help a random girl find her car?" Foster paused, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Because something about you made me want to." Then he got into his car and the engine purred to life. He drove off, leaving her standing there like someone had just handed her a lottery ticket she didn't remember buying. The next morning, Brielle stood in front of a glass door that read Executive Offices Rains Global. Her blouse was clean, her nerves were not. She had no idea what she was walking into. The receptionist barely glanced up before waving her through. "Mr. Rains is expecting you." She walked into a sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the entire city, and an espresso machine that probably cost more than her car. Foster stood by the window, his jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He turned when he heard her. "Right on time," he said. "I like that." She stepped forward. "I still don't understand if this is a job interview or a prank." "Neither," he said. "It's a test. You'll be shadowing my executive assistant for 2 weeks. If you can handle it, the job's yours." Her eyebrows shot up. "Seriously," he nodded. "And if it helps settle your nerves, this isn't charity. I saw something in you. You're sharp. You've got instincts." "I don't hand out jobs for fun," she swallowed. "Okay, I'll do it." "Good," Foster said, picking up a folder and handing it to her. "And Brielle?" "Yeah, I wasn't kidding yesterday. Something about you stuck. She didn't know what to say to that. So she took the folder, gave him a small smile, and walked out with her heart beating just a little faster. 3 days in, Brielle had learned 2 things. 1, Foster Raines was terrifyingly brilliant. 2, he remembered everything. Every comment, every choice, every time she took initiative. He watched her like he was cataloging her in a mental file, but he was never inappropriate, never crossed a line, just noticed her, and she noticed him back. The way he always held the elevator doors for anyone, even interns. The way he stood when a woman entered the room. The way his voice softened when he gave her instructions, like he didn't want to overwhelm her. One night, after a long meeting ran late, he offered her a ride home. She hesitated. "I'm fine taking the train. I'm not letting you leave this office at 9 p.m. to stand on a subway platform." "Get in." His car was quiet, sleek, the seats like butter. He didn't speak much, just asked her about her favorite music, then played it through the sound system like it mattered. When they pulled up to her building, he turned to her and said, "You're doing well. Better than well." She smiled. "Thanks, I'm trying not to mess it up." "You won't," he said, "but just so you know, I didn't hire you because I felt sorry for you. I didn't think you did." He looked at her for a long moment. "I hired you because I wanted to keep you close." Her breath caught in her throat. Then he added, "Good night, Brielle," and she got out of the car before her heart did something dangerous. She didn't sleep much that night. Not because she was scared, because she was starting to hope. Brielle tapped her pen against her notepad, watching the screen at the front of the conference room flash through a slideshow of quarterly projections. She wasn't supposed to be in this meeting. Technically, the assistant she was shadowing had called in sick, and rather than cancel, Foster had kept the meeting on schedule and told Brielle, "Sit in. Take notes, don't miss a word," so she didn't. She wrote everything, even the things that didn't make sense yet. She figured she'd ask questions later, assuming she could find the nerve. Across the table, Foster leaned back in his chair, one hand pressed to his temple. Eyes narrowed at the speaker. The man presenting some department head whose name she hadn't caught was talking too fast, using too many slides, and repeating himself so much it was making her dizzy. Foster didn't interrupt. But when the presentation ended and the lights came back up, his voice was quiet and sharp. "You just spent 20 minutes telling me what I already know. You didn't tell me what I need to know." The man blanched. I thought the data, you thought wrong," Foster said, standing. "Come back when you're ready to tell me what the next step is, not just what the problem was." The man gathered his materials and practically fled the room. Brielle glanced around. No one else moved. No one dared. Then Foster turned his gaze on her. "You took notes," she held up the pad. "Every word." He walked over, took the notepad, and flipped through the pages. After a moment, he handed it back. "You picked out the gaps," he said. "Good instincts?" "I didn't know what I was looking for," she admitted. "You didn't have to," he replied. "You still saw what was missing." He didn't wait for a reaction, just walked out, leaving the others scrambling to follow. That night, as she gathered her things at her desk, a woman with a sharp bob and a clipboard approached her. "You're Brielle, right?" She nodded. "Yes, I'm Marion. I manage Foster's private calendar. He wants you at the Bellwether Gala tomorrow night, 7 sharp. Don't be late." Brielle blinked. "Gala, as in tuxedos and champagne," Marion arched an eyebrow. "Do you see him attending backyard barbecues?" She didn't. "Do I need to bring anything?" "Just don't wear anything with rhinestones," Marion said, already walking away. Brielle stared after her. Then down at her worn flats and plain blouse. This was really happening. The next evening, her reflection stared back at her from the mirror in her tiny apartment, almost unrecognizable. Her friend Tasha had lent her a floor-length navy gown with a low back and elegant drape that managed to look expensive, even though it wasn't. She'd borrowed a pair of heels too barely worn but still terrifyingly high outside. A sleek silver car idled at the curb. A driver leaned out the window. "Miss Owens." "That's me," she said, heart hammering. The ride to the venue was silent but smooth. The moment she stepped out onto the carpeted entrance, the flashes of camera bulbs hit her like heat. She froze. Then a hand touched her elbow. Foster. He was in a black tuxedo, bow tie crisp, expression unreadable. He leaned toward her. "Relax, they're not here for you," she exhaled. "That's comforting." He offered his arm. You're with me, let them guess why. They walked into the ballroom together, and Brielle's senses were immediately overwhelmed. Crystal chandeliers shimmered from the ceiling. Waiters moved silently through the room with trays of champagne. A string quartet played something light and complicated in one corner. "Why am I here?" she whispered. "Because I want you here," he said. As they passed a group of executives, a woman with red lipstick and a designer gown looked Brielle up and down, then turned to Foster. "New hire," his mouth barely moved. "New priority." The woman's expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed. Brielle caught the shift and tucked it away. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about a +1. Later, standing near a marble column with a glass of champagne, Brielle watched Foster speak to a small group of investors. He didn't glance her way once, but she could feel his awareness of her like a current in the air. "Don't take it personally," a voice said beside her. She turned. A man in a white dinner jacket stood there, holding a glass of scotch. He had a roguish smile and the air of someone who always knew the exit strategy. "He puts people where he wants them," the man continued. "You wouldn't be standing here unless he wanted you to be seen." "Is that a compliment or a warning?" she asked. "Both," he said. "I'm Julian, and you're either a very clever assistant or something much more interesting." "I'm nobody," she replied. Julian laughed. Nobody doesn't get delivered in one of Foster's cars. He walked away before she could respond. Foster joined her a few minutes later, his jacket unbuttoned now, his expression unreadable. "What did Julian say to you?" "That I'm being used for optics." Foster's jaw flexed. "He talks too much," she looked up at him. "Is he right?" "No," he said. "He's wrong." She waited for him to elaborate, but he didn't. Instead, he took her glass and set it on a tray as it passed. "Come with me." He led her up a narrow staircase tucked behind a velvet curtain. At the top, an empty terrace stretched over the city, silent and glittering. "I come up here when I need to breathe," he said. She stepped to the edge, her hands on the iron railing. "It's beautiful." "Not as much as you looked coming through that door tonight," her breath caught. "I didn't bring you here to parade you," he said. "I brought you because I wanted to see you in a place like this, to see if it fit. And does it? You haven't run screaming yet." She turned to him. "You're not like I expected." "I hope that's a good thing." "It is," she said. "But it's also confusing." He stepped closer. "You're not here because of a resume, Brielle. You're here because I haven't stopped thinking about you since the parking garage." She didn't know what to say. "I shouldn't be saying this," he continued. "You work for me, there are rules. Expectations. Then why are you?" "Because I'm tired of pretending I don't want to change all of them for you." The wind shifted, brushing her hair across her cheek. He reached out, tucked it behind her ear. "I don't know what this is yet," she said quietly. "Neither do I. But I know it's real." And when he leaned in, she didn't stop him. Later, when they returned to the ballroom, her hand was in his. And this time, the cameras did turn. Brielle stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of Raines Tower's executive floor, her heart still racing. Her lipstick had faded, her earrings were slightly uneven, and her pulse hadn't slowed since the moment Foster kissed her on that rooftop terrace. She'd walked back into the ballroom with his hand laced through hers, every eye on them like a spotlight, and somehow managed not to trip over the hem of her borrowed gown. She dabbed at her cheek with a damp paper towel, trying to cool her flushed skin. It wasn't just the kiss that had her reeling, it was the certainty in his voice when he said he hadn't stopped thinking about her. The problem was, she hadn't stopped thinking about him either, long before the gala. When she exited the bathroom, the hallway was empty save for the hum of recessed lighting overhead. She turned the corner and nearly collided with Marion, the woman who managed Foster's calendar. "There you are," Marion said crisply. "Mr. Raines needs you in conference room 4. Immediately, Brielle blinked. "Now, it's almost midnight. He says it's time sensitive." She didn't ask questions. She walked the long stretch of glass-paneled hallway, heels echoing softly, and pushed the door open. Foster stood alone inside, holding a small black folder in one hand. The room's lights were dimmed, and the city lights spilled in through the windows, turning the space into something close to surreal. "I thought we were done for the night," she said. He turned, his gaze unreadable. Something came up. She moved closer. "What is it?" He held out the folder. "I need your opinion." She took it. opening the cover to reveal a confidential acquisition proposal, the kind of document that would never be handed to someone in her position under normal circumstances. But nothing about this situation was normal. "You want me to read this now?" she asked. Yes. She flipped through the pages, scanning the executive summary, the core liabilities, the company's market saturation. Her brows furrowed. "This company looks like a trap," she said. "Their consumer base is declining and their overheads bloated." "It's a vanity buy, not a smart one." Foster's mouth twitched, not a smile, not amusement, something else. "That's exactly what I thought." She looked up. "Then why even entertain it?" "Because my board thinks it's a shortcut to expanding our media division." "And you disagree?" "I don't believe in shortcuts," he said, "or illusions of momentum. I want what lasts." She closed the folder and handed it back. "Then tell them to find something built to last, not something that needs resuscitation." He took it from her, his fingers brushing hers. "That's what I needed. Someone to say it without posturing. You have an entire floor of advisors. I have you." The silence that followed was too heavy to ignore. Brielle shifted her weight. "Foster." He stepped closer, closing the gap between them. "Say what you're thinking." She met his eyes. "I don't know what this is." "I do," he said. "It's real, it's inconvenient, and it's something I haven't felt in years." "I'm not used to this world," she said quietly. "I don't want you to be." "Then what do you want?" "I want the woman who told me the truth when everyone else played it safe. The woman who didn't flinch when I challenged her, who didn't chase me, who doesn't need me," he paused, then added, "but who wants me anyway." She swallowed. "This can't just be a moment, Foster." "It isn't. It started in a parking garage and somehow turned into the only thing I can't stop thinking about." Her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "Then show me I'm not just another distraction." Without answering, he pulled something from his jacket pocket and set it on the table. A key. Attached to a thin chain. "What's this?" "Your name's on the lease. Midtown apartment, fully furnished, rent-free, no strings." She stared at him. "You're offering me a place to live. You've been commuting back and forth for weeks, staying late, giving more than anyone else on staff. I don't want you burning out. You deserve better than a shoebox and 2 trains." Her instincts warred. Part of her wanted to throw the key back at him, tell him she didn't need handouts. But another part understood this wasn't a favor, it was a gesture, not of charity, of care. "I'll think about it," she said. "I already had it cleaned and stocked, regardless of what you decide." She picked up the key, turning it over. "You don't do anything halfway, do you?" "No," he said, "especially not when it matters." That night, she didn't go straight home. She asked the driver to take her to the apartment. The doorman greeted her by name. The elevator opened to a quiet hallway, and when she stepped inside, her breath caught. The space was warm, lived in, not hotel sterile. Books lined the shelves, fresh flowers in a vase. The kitchen smelled faintly of vanilla, like someone had lit a candle earlier. There was nothing flashy, nothing showy, just comfort. On the counter sat a note written in Foster's unmistakably sharp handwriting. "You don't owe me anything. I just wanted to give you something that felt like peace." She pressed the note to her chest and closed her eyes. The next morning, she arrived at Rain's tower early, earlier than anyone else. Foster wasn't in yet. She walked into his office with 2 coffees and set one on his desk. When he walked in 10 minutes later, he paused. "You beat me here. I had a short commute," she said. He looked at the coffee, then at her. "So, I'll take the apartment on one condition. Name it. We keep this between us, for now, no office gossip, no headlines, just us." He stepped forward slowly, voice low. "Done. And one more thing," she added, tilting her chin. "No more extravagant surprises. If I want something, I'll ask." He raised an eyebrow. "That's going to be difficult. I like surprising you, I know," she said. "But I need to know this isn't all about what you can give me." He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then let me show you what I'm willing to fight for instead." And somehow, that meant more than all the keys, all the champagne, all the rooftop views in the world. Brielle paused in the doorway of the rooftop garden, her breath catching at the sight ahead. The space had been transformed since she'd last seen it. Gone were the usual lounge chairs and business casual seating. In their place stood a small dining table draped in white linen, illuminated by a constellation of hanging lanterns suspended from the metal pergola above. Low jazz notes drifted from a speaker tucked beside a planter. The scent of rosemary and lemon balm carried on the breeze. Foster stood at the far end of the space, sleeves rolled, tie gone, his gaze sweeping the skyline until he heard her footsteps. "You did all this?" she asked. "I had help," he said. "But yes. I thought it was time." "For what?" He walked toward her, slower than usual, as if waiting for her to bolt. "To stop letting fear write the next chapter." She stepped closer. "And what chapter are we in now?" He reached out, lightly brushing her wrist with his fingers. "The one where I stop pretending you're just an assistant." She studied him, the tension in his jaw, the careful way he didn't touch her unless she closed the distance first. "I don't want to be someone you protect from the world like a secret." "I don't want that either," he said. "I want you in every part of it, not just the quiet corners where no one's looking." "But when they do look," she said, "they're going to talk." "They already are," he replied. "They think I've lost my edge. That I've gone soft. And have you? Completely," he admitted, then added, "But I've never been more certain of anything in my life." She exhaled, tension slipping from her shoulders. "Then maybe I have too." He pulled out a chair for her. "Dinner first. Revelations after." They sat beneath the soft glow of lanterns, plates of roasted sea bass and saffron risotto set before them. The chef appeared briefly to pour wine before vanishing back through the rooftop access door. Brielle twirled her fork through the risotto. "You didn't cook this yourself, did you?" "If I had, we'd be eating toast," he said. "I know my limits." She smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "You always seem so. In control." "I'm not," he said. "Not with you." There was a long silence, but not a heavy one. Just the kind that lingered when everything important had been said and still, more weighted beneath the surface. After dinner, he stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me. There's no one else here." "Exactly." She slipped her hand into his, and he pulled her gently into his arms. They moved slowly, bodies close, the music curling around them like a promise. "I've spent years building walls," he said softly. "Around my time, my emotions, my trust. And then you walked in, asking where your car was, and those walls didn't make sense anymore." She rested her head against his shoulder. "You ever think it's strange that something so small started all this?" "No," he said. "I think it was supposed to." The song ended. He didn't let go. "I have something for you," he said. She pulled back just enough to see his face. "If it's another apartment, I'm going to throw you off your own roof." He laughed, shaking his head. "No gifts. Just an offer." He reached into his blazer, which he draped over a nearby chair, and pulled out a slim envelope. She took it, carefully sliding her finger beneath the seal. Inside was a letter, handwritten. Short. She read it once, then again. "You want me to head strategy development for your new foundation?" she asked, eyes darting up. "There's no one else I trust to build it from the ground up," he said. "I know you've been doing more than your job, staying late, researching markets I never assigned. The foundation's real, it's fully funded, and I want you to run it. You'd be my boss." "No," he said. "It's yours. I'll fund it, advise if you ask, but this would be yours." She folded the letter slowly. "You're serious?" "I don't say things I don't mean." She looked out over the city skyline, the weight of the moment sinking in. "I came here trying to find a receptionist job, something temporary, something safe. And you found something permanent," he said. "If you want it." She turned back to him. "I want it." His gaze softened. "And me," she stepped into him, her hands resting lightly on his chest. "I want what we are when everything else fades away. When it's just you and me and no one watching. Then let's stop waiting." He reached into his pocket again, pulling out a small velvet box. For a moment she froze, her breath caught, time slowed. "I didn't plan to do this here," he said. "But I don't want to wait for perfect moments anymore." He opened the box. Inside sat a ring, simple, elegant, unmistakably meaningful. "I love you, Brielle. I love your grit, your laughter, your fire. I love how you challenge me without fear. I want to build a life with you that we don't hide in corners. Will you marry me?" She stared at him, heart hammering so hard it drowned out the city noise below. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." He slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her slowly, deeply, with every ounce of certainty she'd always hoped was real. Below them, the city moved on. Lights flickered. Cars passed. People hurried toward places they thought mattered. But up here, in the highest garden in Manhattan, two people who should never have crossed paths stood hand in hand, rewriting the rules of what they thought they deserved. And this time, nothing was lost, not a car, not a chance, and never again each other. A month later, Brielle stood at the edge of the private vineyard estate in Napa Valley, barefoot in the dew-soft grass as the early morning mist curled around the rows of grapevines. The sun had only just begun to warm the horizon, and the house behind her, modern, angular, and carved seamlessly into the hillside, was still asleep, except for one person. Foster appeared on the stone path with 2 mugs in hand, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, jeans casually rolled at the ankle. He offered her the coffee, and she took it without a word, fingers brushing his. They stood in silence for a few moments, the kind that didn't need filling. Since the night on the rooftop, their world had shifted in every conceivable way. Her days were now spent assembling a passionate team for the foundation, her foundation, while living in the quiet luxury of a space designed not to impress, but to cradle. Foster had taken a step back from the daily grind of boardrooms and bottom lines, redirecting his energy into investments that aligned with his values, many of them now funneled through the charitable arm she directed. "I don't miss the skyline," she said, taking a sip. "I thought you would," he replied. "You always looked like you were made for it." "I thought I was too," she said. "But turns out I just needed space to breathe, and someone who didn't try to control how I did it." He reached for her free hand and laced their fingers together. "I never wanted to control you. I just didn't know how to let someone in without trying to protect everything." "You still try," she teased, "but now I can call you out and you don't flinch." "I flinch internally," he admitted. "You just don't see it." She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. "You've changed. So have you." They didn't say anything after that for a while. The breeze picked up slightly, rustling the leaves and carrying the scent of lavender from the edge of the terrace. In the distance, a truck rumbled down the service road, bringing fresh produce for the chef who now ran the kitchen they rarely used but always appreciated. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly, not lifting her head. "Which part?" Stepping back. "Letting the company run without you at the center." "I spent years building something I thought I needed to be whole," he said. "Turns out it was just noise. You were the signal." He paused, turning to face her fully. "I don't regret a second of what I gave up. Because what I got in return is the only thing that ever really mattered." She looked up at him, her eyes clear. "You still surprise me. I hope I always do." They went inside a few minutes later, the warmth of the kitchen waiting for them. Foster poured the second round of coffee while Brielle opened the laptop at the table, scanning her schedule for the day. A video call with a youth program in Chicago, a budget review for the Clean Water Initiative, an interview with a grant writer from Johannesburg. Foster leaned over her shoulder, reading the screen. "You're busier than I ever was. I like it," she said. "It makes sense in my head. It's like building something that actually touches people." "You were always meant to lead," he said. "You just needed someone to hand you the blueprint." "No," she said, turning and looping her arms around his neck. "I needed someone who didn't mind when I rewrote the blueprint from scratch." He kissed her forehead, then her temple, then finally her lips, slow, deliberate, and full of everything they'd learned to say without words. Later that afternoon, they hosted a small group of friends and partners at the estate. It wasn't a formal event, no cameras, no press, no networking games. Just good food, better wine, and laughter that echoed across the valley. Tasha flew in from New York and immediately declared she was never going back. Julian arrived late, brought a bottle of vintage Bordeaux, and offered a rare toast that was both sincere and only mildly sarcastic. "I never thought I'd see the day," he said, lifting his glass, "when Foster Raines voluntarily wore linen and smiled in public." Foster raised his own glass. "Turns out the right woman changes your entire operating system." Brielle leaned into his side, cheeks slightly pink, but her hand never left his. As the sun set, casting gold across the vineyard, Foster led her away from the group and down a narrow path that wound between the vines. He stopped at a small, hand-carved bench beneath a willow tree. She recognized it instantly. It was the one she'd told him about on one of their first nights in the apartment, a childhood memory from her grandmother's garden. He'd had it replicated down to the curve of the backrest. I remember this, she whispered. You told me it was the only place you ever felt safe, he said. I wanted you to have that again, always. She sat slowly, fingers tracing the smooth wood. You remembered. I remember everything you say, he replied. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with something deeper than any single word could describe. Marrying you was the easiest decision I ever made. He knelt in front of her, taking both her hands. Loving you is the only decision I want to keep making every single day. They kissed beneath the willow, the world narrowing to the sound of wind and the rhythm of two lives that had finally found their center. That evening, after the guests had left and the stars had begun to scatter across the sky, Brielle stood on the balcony of their bedroom wrapped in a silk robe, watching the constellations drift. Foster slipped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Still awake, just thinking about all the things I never thought I'd have, safety, purpose, you have all three, he said, and you always will. She turned in his arms, brushing her fingers through his hair. Do you think we'll ever get used to this? I hope not, he said. I hope it always feels a little like magic. Their lips met again, not with desperation, but with the deep certainty of people who had already fought for their place in each other's lives and won. Somewhere in the quiet night, a breeze shifted the curtains, and the house settled around them like a final exhale. There were no more questions left to ask, no more walls left to break, only love and everything ahead.